Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Today we are in Stratford in London and we've come to meet Raza Ullah, who's the founder of PFIDA, a fintech who is going to change the game of Muslims buying property, Muslims getting on the property ladder, and saving their money and wealth in a halal way. Follow me and let's get straight into it.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome to PFIDA HQ. Come follow me, I'll show you around. So I'm going to take you into our office and show you our work environment. So welcome to the office. First thing you'll notice is the prayer space. This is very important to us. This is where we read our salah in Jamaat every single day. Alhamdulillah, usually Sheikh Zaman leads. This is the working area. Got a nice view of the Olympic Stadium there and a nice balcony. On a nice summer's day, we occasionally get food and drinks out there. It's really lovely. You can see people hard at work. They're not playing chess. They are actually working. And this is the ping pong table. Richard, say hi. Hi. And then over to the meeting room. This is where we hold our board meetings. And that's the office tour.
Brother Raza, thank you so much for having us in your beautiful office with your beautiful people.
Thank you so much.
Now, you started as an actuary and you worked for PwC and the Bank of England and a few other places. And you're now running a fintech, trying to disrupt the way, people, Muslims, buy homes and save their money. How did that all happen? What's the story behind that?
Yeah,
That's a big jump.
I mean, this is quite a story, to be honest. And I like telling this story because it reminds me as well. So, as you already say, I'm an actuary by background. For those who haven't heard what an actuary is, actuaries are complex statistical modelers. My job was to work for financial institutions and model risk for them. So I used to run very complex computer models, running tens of thousands of simulations and trying to come up with a distribution of possible outcomes so that you can tell how much money you need to hold to stay solvent even in the worst case scenario. So that was my role as an actuary. Now, the actuarial skill set is quite low in supply. There's not that many actuaries in the world, let alone in any particular country, but they're high in demand. So as a result, actuaries are very, very well paid.
Yeah.
So when I was working in the City of London, I was earning, alhamdulillah, very, very good money. I progressed in my career very, very quickly. Yeah. Actuaries have to take a whole suite of professional exams. Alhamdulillah, I passed my exams very, very quickly. And as a result, I got to very senior roles, very high-powered roles in the City of London, earning very, very good money. So I was in a very good place. I had no complaints whatsoever. Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed my job and I was very good at it. Now, the question is, why did I leave?
Yeah, because it makes no sense, right? The way you're describing it.
Exactly. And I actually had no reason to leave it. And funnily enough, I left it very reluctantly when I did, and I'll get to that. So, rewinding to 2016, I was working at the Bank of England, and I was sat next to a guy called Elliot Nusiani Kane, young 20-something-year-old new grad, non-Muslim guy. And I was actually boasting to him at the time, and I was saying, Elliot, we actually earn a lot of money, and I'm going to retire by the time I'm 40 with a portfolio of properties, and I'm going to live off of the rental income. And that was my ambition at the time. And then, Elliot, this 20-something-year-old non-Muslim guy, he wagged a finger in my face. He said, Raza, what you're talking about is going to worsen the housing crisis we're in, because you're going to buy up loads of housing stock and make it more expensive for people to live. Whereas with an actuarial skill set, you can fix it.
Wow.
And he said, you have a responsibility to fix it. And I thought, bugger, he's got me. Right? Because I had this grand plan of just, retiring by 40. And I thought, God, he's absolutely right. And actually, when you think about it, he was teaching me Islam. Because he didn't say you have the ability to fix it. He said you have a responsibility to fix it. And what he was basically saying is, Allah's given me a skill set. I have a responsibility to do something useful with that skill set. And actually, I rewound even further to another conversation I'd had when I was considering becoming an actuary. Actuaries quite often work for insurance companies, and insurance is, a grey area to say the least, and many would consider traditional insurance to be haram, although not all. So I had a conversation with a mentor back in the days saying, look, I'm thinking about being an actuary, but I know there'll be elements of working in insurance companies. What do you propose? And he had said to me, we need actuaries. We need Muslim actuaries, because if all Muslims shy away from being actuaries, we'll never have that skill set in our community, and we'll suffer for that. So you should do it, but with the intention of then using it for good. So Eddie's conversation struck me like a ton of bricks, but then it rewound me even further to that original conversation where I had actually become an actuary on the basis that I learned that skill set to do something good with it. So these were now sort of floating in my mind. And that very same year, I went on HAJJ. Allah called me to his beautiful house. And it was on HAJJ, on the day of Arafah. I remember vividly standing under a tree in 50 degrees heat, standing in the shade, hands raised to the sky, and just making dua, saying, Ya Allah, you have given me everything I could possibly hope for. You've given me health, wealth, iman, intellect, this actuarial skill set, anything I could possibly want, you've given me. I have nothing that I'm short of in this dunya, Ya Allah, alhamdulillah. But Ya Allah, what am I going to say when you ask me what I did with it all? Ya Allah, on that day when you question me, what am I going to say to you? And I realized I didn't have a very good answer. And the realization crept upon me, and that turned into fear. And that turned into outright panic.
Wow.
And I remember standing there, and first my arms started trembling, and then my knees started trembling.
Wow.
And my tears started coming uncontrollably, because I was picturing myself standing in front of Allah, saying, I bought a nice car and a nice house, and I went on holidays. With all the countless blessings you've given me, that's all I've done. Ya Allah, I'm afraid to stand in front of you on that day when you ask me that question. I'm actually terrified to stand in front of you and not have a good answer, because I'm embarrassed with the answer that I have right now. And I cried so hard because I was terrified of that day which I was picturing in my mind. And I came to the realization with a puddle of tears running around my feet in the sand, I came to the realization that I needed to have a better answer. Even if I could say, Ya Allah, I tried. Maybe I failed. Even if I could say, Ya Allah, I tried, maybe in His infinite mercy, He may say, okay, that's enough. He may forgive me. And so I decided on that day I needed to do something about it. So I came home from Hajj. I was working at the Bank of England at the time. I immediately ended my role at the Bank of England without a solid plan. And I started thinking, what can I do? And subhanAllah, leaving your job is hard, especially when you're earning ridiculous money with no wants at all. But also as an actuary, my job is to be risk averse.
Yes, absolutely.
So, to come back and leave my job without a solid plan was completely out of character. But I did it because of that fear.
Yeah.
And so I actually spent a few months thinking, well, what am I going to do? And I thought about charity work and decided, well, there's great charities. It's not really my calling in life. And then I thought about this conversation with Elliot, and I thought, right, what can I do in the housing market? And so that was how I then sort of came upon the conclusion that, right, I need to come up with a better way of helping Muslims to buy their homes. And that eventually evolved into a way of helping Muslims to save. So I mentioned earlier that I left my job reluctantly.
Yeah.
And I didn't leave my job because I wanted to. I left my job because I felt I had to.
Yeah.
I felt I had a responsibility. I felt it was a fard upon me. And my original plan was to actually try and help one or two families. I said, right, I'll use my life savings. Well, I had a nice nest egg at that point in time. I said, I'll use my life savings. I'll help fund one or two families' homes free from RIBA. And maybe that's me done. And I can go back to being an actor and enjoying my life. That was my plan, right? And then I got into it and I started, hashing out the contracts. I'd never picked up an Islamic finance text at that point in my life, so I've started reading more into it. Yeah. And the more I read, the more I fell in love with this mission. And, just starting to build. And also, by the way, at that point in my life, if you'd asked me, do I ever want to work for myself, I would have said no. I was so risk averse, right? I would have said, no, I want to work for someone else, do my 9 to 5 and go think. I would have never even dreamed of working for myself. So this was all very scary. And I had a mantra, because it was terrifying, right? I had a mantra I had to keep repeating to myself. You take a step forward, a lake comes running towards you. I had to keep reminding myself of that mantra, because it was scary as heck.
Right, Stephen.
And subhanAllah, the more I got into it, the more I fell in love with it. And alhamdulillah, I had the opportunity to fund the first couple of homes. And the first one was purely through my own life savings. And then we raised Qard Hasana. We said to the community, we went and did several different masjid events and said, well, this is what we're building. I'd brought on Sheikh Zaman by that time as one of my co-founders. We said, this is what we're building. And inshallah, it's going to benefit you, your children and your children's children, but we need your help. We need you to support us with Qard Hasana so we can get going. Alhamdulillah, the community rallied behind us. We raised a substantial sum of Qard Hasana and we used that to then fund the first additional few homes. And then that led into the savings accounts proposition that we have today, which is then how we sort of structured the business to take on money and use it to fund homes. So it was a roller coaster ride, completely out of character for me. I did it very reluctantly, thinking I'll go back to being an actor within a year or two. And even now I get recruiters calling me up saying, I've got this great actuarial role. How's the business going? Are you interested? And I'm backing them away saying, no, the business is all I care about.
Okay, so there's no going back now.
I couldn't even imagine.
Impossible, right?
I loved being an actuary. Now I couldn't even imagine. And I earned multiples more than I'm earning now.
Of course.
But I am multiples more fulfilled than I was.
Absolutely.
I was in very senior roles, but I never used to stay awake at night thinking, well, how can I do my role better? How can I build? How can I progress? Whereas now, this is all I think about.
Yeah.
This is literally my, it's not just a job, it's a vocation.
You find your calling. You find your calling. And that is something many people don't have the opportunity and the privilege of finding in their lifetime, subhanAllah. And your calling is helping people stay away from something incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
And I'm very outspoken against RIBA. And subhanAllah, I think what you said so far, the story so far had so many golden nuggets in there that we could just spend the next 20 minutes unpacking them. Even the point of, we are so blessed. If you're a Muslim professional living in the UK with a roof over your head and education, you're probably top 0.01% of the ummah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably more zeros. What are you doing with that?
Yeah, exactly.
Just work, home, sleep, repeat, a few holidays, help a few relatives and friends, and that's it.
And then we cry about how fragmented we are as an ummah, right?
Yeah, so that used to keep me up at night. Like, what am I going to do with the blessings that we've been given? And subhanAllah, you got to take that leap of faith, and it's probably been scary and painful and difficult, but ultimately we just want something to show for. And subhanAllah, I think this is something we encourage everybody to think about. What will we show?
Yeah.
And you standing there on the day of Arafah is basically a dry run of Yawm al-Qiyamah, right?
Yeah,
that's basically what it is.
No, I mean, people say Hajj is a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
You hear people talking about it. It's only when you go and experience it you realize what that means. And I encourage everyone listening to picture that day when you're standing in front of Allah and He's asking you, what did you do with the countless ni'mah that I gave you? What are we going to say to Allah?
What are we going to say?
What are we going to say? And actually, that doesn't mean all of us have to go and be entrepreneurs, right? No. But we need to question whether we are going to be able to say something that's pleasing to Allah.
Yeah.
And that may be supporting existing causes, right?
Yeah,
Supporting charitable causes. I actually think as an Ummah, we have a responsibility to support all of these wonderful Islamic startups that are here at the moment. Because, you know, myself and other Islamic entrepreneurs, we're trying to build the Islamic economy. We can only do that if the people get behind us.
Absolutely.
Right? If people just leave it to us and say, right, call me when it's ready, we're not going to survive, right? We have a collective responsibility. And I often say to my team that FIDA was built by the community for the community. Because it was the community coming together. We bootstrapped this from no money, hardly any capital at all. Okay, I used my life savings to fund some homes, but in terms of the money we had for building the business, we didn't take any external investment until way down the line when we were already profitable.
Of course.
Right? So we bootstrapped this from scratch. How did we achieve that? Because the community got behind us with their skills and their talents, right? And they helped us build. And so it was built by the community, and that's, that actually needs to not stop.
Absolutely.
The community needs to support these sorts of initiatives, not just FIDA, but the various different Islamic initiatives that are out there, so that we can build that Islamic economy together, and so that we can become one joined up body and actually work towards increasing wealth and prosperity for Muslims and society at large.
Everybody.
Right? That is what we need to do. We have to stop having a silo mentality that I'm going to work for myself, I'm going to give my family a good life, and that's enough. It's not enough. And I encourage everyone to think about that day when they're answering Allah. What did you do to please me? Because that is our job on this earth.
Exactly.
Why did Allah create jinn and mankind? To worship Allah and to please Him. That is it.
SubhanAllah. And how many years has it been since you took that first step and funded the first house?
So I took the first step in 2016.
Wow.
So we're 7 years on.
And did you, and at that point, did you ever think 7 years later you'd have what you have now?
I couldn't even imagine. I mean, we're still at the start of the journey. The way I think about it, and actually my CFO husband came up with this analogy, we started at basement level -5, right? We're still only at basement level -3 or -2, right? We've still got such a long way to go.
Yeah.
But as I said, my ambition initially was to help two families rather than go back to being an actuary. And actually, I think that's actually one of my greatest benefits, I'd say. I didn't start this with a typical mindset of, I can make money off of it.
Yeah.
I started this because I felt I had to. I could have made more money just being an actor.
Absolutely.
The reason I'm doing what I do is because I feel that genuine responsibility to do it.
SubhanAllah. And something you said really struck me is that you used your life savings to fund the first, the first home.
That's right.
And that is proof that you're serious about this. Yeah. And I think that is why Allah blessed you with a lot of barakah and help and brought you here and hopefully much, much further down the line, inshallah. Because that is one of the ways in which we bring barakah in our businesses to actually show the commitment.
Even now, all of my life savings are in FIDA.
All in it.
Literally, I can't say all.
Yeah,
some money.
Yes, of course.
Pretty much all of my life savings are in FIDA.
So
I'm, we might talk a bit later about how we need to get into an investment mindset as Muslims. I was guilty of that myself. Because as an actuary, I'm so risk averse. Even though I knew I should be investing, I never used to invest. The first time I invested was when we opened FIDA savings accounts when I put all of my money into. Again, as a Muslim, as an actuary, I know putting all your eggs in one basket is not sensible. But I put everything into FIDA because I believe so.
You believe in it, mashallah. So subhanallah, so we're now, how big is the team now?
49 people.
49 people, mashallah.
The office is empty today. You won't be able to tell from the intro. 49 people, mashallah.
Mashallah. And how do you encapsulate your mission in one sentence? How would you sort of?
I can encapsulate it in 2 words.
2 words. Okay.
To serve.
To serve.
Right. Our strapline, FIDA for the people.
Yeah.
We are here to serve the people. To serve Allah primarily, but to serve Allah by serving the people. That is what FIDA is for. And actually, you asked me earlier off camera, what does FIDA mean?
Absolutely.
And I told you, FIDA, the word means benefit. It's from Arabic. It's actually the same in Arabic, Urdu, Turkish, Bengali, Persian, all different languages. FIDA means benefit. But why is there that awkward P at the front, right? Why do people look at it and go, PFIDA, what does that mean, right? The P stands for people, because our mission is to put people first, even if it gives our name an awkward spelling.
SubhanAllah, that is profound.
First.
That is really profound. And again, another proof of your commitment that you put your money where your mouth is. SubhanAllah, SubhanAllah. So what is the most important message you would like to give to anyone who's coming across FIDA for the very first time?
Yeah, so FIDA exists to provide an ethical halal alternative to the banking system. If you think about what banks do, they provide a place for you to park your money, your savings, if you like, through their deposit accounts, and they provide a place for borrowing money, particularly on mortgages. Now, when you put money in a bank account, what many people don't realize is for every £100 you put in your bank account, the bank is lending up to £98 of your money on its mortgage book, right? Now, if it's a conventional bank, £98 of your money is being used on interest-based loans. So when you open up a conventional bank account, actually any bank account, you are signing a contract with the bank saying that I permit you to use my money to lend with interest. And as Muslims, that should be unacceptable for us. Okay, you've got Islamic banks. Islamic banks, there's a grey area, right? Some people are very happy with the Islamic banking product. Some people are less happy. I'm not here to say right or wrong. But whether you're happy with the Islamic banking product or not, let's go deeper into the banking industry. All regulated banks do something else that, again, most people don't realize. It's called fractional reserving, right? When you put money in a bank account, the bank knows that most people leave their life savings in the account. They know that you're not going to call upon that money. You're going to call upon the money you need day to day. At any given point, if you've got £10,000 in your bank account, you're not going to call that £10,000 today.
No.
You might need £200 here, £50 there. But they know that most of your money is going to sit idle for a long, long time. And so what they do is they use that money to print money. And this is called fractional reserving, because they can print more money. Even though they've only got £10,000 in the pot, they know £9,000 of that is never going to be called. So they can print another £9,000 of money and use that to lend, right? Now, what does this do to the economy? This is what we have to really think about. When banks print more money, we've all heard in the press, printing money leads to inflation. This is what we don't realize. When you leave money in a regulated bank, and this is all banks, Islamic or regular banks, they print money, and printing money creates inflation. Inflation makes houses more expensive. Why are houses in the UK so expensive? It's our fault, because we leave all our money in banks and allow them to use that to print more and more and more money, lend more and more and more, and that makes houses more and more expensive. So by leaving all our savings in a bank, we are pricing ourselves out of the housing market. We also don't actually know what the bank is doing with a lot of the money. The bank has a license to take as much risk with that money as they like. They can be lending it on homes, they can be lending it on very risky transactions as well. We have no idea. Now, when we put our money somewhere, when we donate our money to charity, we ask that charity, what are you doing with my money, right? Should we not be doing the same with banks? We have no idea what banks are doing with our money. And actually, banks can take excessive risk. And if that risk pays off, they keep all the profit. You don't see it. If it doesn't pay off and the bank collapses, guess who has to bail them out?
The government.
The taxpayer, right? The government, the taxpayer. So we are giving banks a license to abuse our money, price us out of our own homes. And actually, who gets affected the most by that? The poor. Because they have less money to begin with. The whole banking system is rigged. Right? And I'm sounding like a conspiracy theorist.
No.
It's a whole conversation. The banking system is rigged to make the rich richer and the poor poorer. That is what we do when we leave all of our money in a bank account. I'm not saying we shouldn't have bank accounts. Bank accounts serve a purpose. We all need money for day-to-day purposes. But the worst thing we can do with our money is leave it all in a bank account idle, where it's pricing us out of our own homes and making the rich richer and the poor poorer. As Muslims, we should not be accepting that. So what FIDA does is create an ethical alternative to that banking system. When people place money in savings accounts with FIDA, we don't use that to print new money. We use that direct money to serve people in their properties, help people buy homes. There's no money printing whatsoever. There's no widening of the rich-poor divide. There's no inflation because there's no money printing. And you know what we're doing with the money. We are only using that money to fund homes and nothing else. So there's 100% transparency, and it's actually better for the economy because it creates stability in the housing market. Why do we see house prices go up and up and up and then crash every 30 years and then up and up and up and then crash every 30 years? It's because of the leveraged economy, because of this bank lending based on money printing, right? And that's quite a technical issue. We can have a whole separate discussion. But the point I'm making is we need to get out of the mindset as Muslims of leaving all our money in a bank account. It is the single worst thing we could be doing. And that's not to mention the erosionary impact of inflation as well, which is actually decreasing the value of your wealth that you're leaving idle. So one thing we do as FIDA is create an alternative where at least we can create stability in the economy in a completely halal, completely ethical way, where you know your money is being used only for good halal tayyib purposes. We're not taking excessive risk with your money. We're only using it to fund homes in a low risk environment. And you know that you're getting a halal return. And actually your money is being used rather than your bank using your money to lend and put people into debt. And whether it's a conventional bank or an Islamic bank, they're putting people into debt, right? Your money is being used to help people avoid debt and avoid riba. And so there's that halal cycle of virtuousness that you're creating, and that is what FIDA stands for.
So if I've understood this correctly, if you put your money in any bank, you're basically supporting riba, mortgages, house prices continuously increasing, inflation getting worse.
Exactly.
Whereas if you were to put that money in, let's say with FIDA, you would be supporting people buying homes in a halal and ethical way.
No debt and no riba.
How can there be no debt? How do you help people buy a house without
Great
debt?
question. So with a bank mortgage, the bank lends you money. You use that money to buy a home, right? Now you owe that money back to the bank as a debt with interest. So that's a simple loan agreement. With FIDA, it's a partnership. So rather than me lending you money, imagine you and I buy a car together.
Yeah.
I haven't loaned you any money, you haven't loaned me any money. We are partners in that car, we both own the car together. Now that means I can't force you to buy me out, you can't force me to buy you out. Maybe you can offer to buy my share of the car from me, and I can accept, but I can't force you to. So with a bank mortgage, you must pay the bank the sum of money they've put in.
Yeah.
If you've borrowed £400,000, you must pay that back no matter what. Do you know what the word mortgage means?
Grip till death.
Correct. The word mort, many of you will recognize the word mort, death, right? Mortgage means death pledge or death grip, because the bank has got you in its grip until you die.
Damn.
Even after you die, that debt passes on to your children and your children's children until it is repaid, no matter what happens. It's a death grip. Whereas in a partnership, we own the property in a partnership with our customers. They pay rent, they sort of part own and part rent.
Yeah.
So they own the share that they've paid towards, they rent the share that they haven't paid towards. Now, their only obligation is to rent on the share that they don't own, because they're living in it.
Of course.
Right? If they want to buy us out, they can buy us out over any period of time. They can buy more from us when they want. They can buy less from us when they want. We've got an app that lets our customers manage their payments. Yeah. So our customers can go into our app from month to month, say this month I'm going to buy this much equity, and we help you understand your goal. So if you say I want to fully own my home after 30 years, we'll tell you what your target payment is. So that if you stick to your target after 30 years, you've bought all the equity. Yeah. But you don't have to stick to it. You can go higher, you can go lower, you can just pay rent if you like. Yeah. You have complete flexibility. And we also give you the ability to do what we call what-if analysis. So with a bank, imagine you're paying £1,000 per month, which is your interest plus your capital repayment, or in an Islamic bank mortgage, your rent plus your equity purchase, and your equity purchase is obligatory in Islamic bank product. Now, let's say you get promoted. You decide, actually, I can afford to pay £1,200 per month and make my tail a bit shorter. You can't do that. You have to go and apply for a brand new product.
Oh, wow.
That means going through, because the bank doesn't want you to pay it too soon. They want to squeeze every penny out.
The longer, the more interest.
Exactly. So you have to go and apply for a brand new product. That means going through the time, the effort, the cost, the commitment of a brand new application. And you don't even have the information to know if you're making a good decision until you've gone through that process. Right. With the FIDA app, you can go in there and say, right now my target is £1,000 per month, which is a 30-year target time frame for me to purchase my home. I've been promoted, I can afford £1,200 per month. What if I start paying £1,200 per month? You can go in the app and see, right, this is going to save me this much money over time. Yeah. This is going to change my rent and equity composition by this month. You can see the exact outcome in real time.
Wow.
And if you like it, you can click and it's done.
Done.
Don't have to apply for a brand new product. You don't even have to speak to us.
That's incredible.
Right, you can go another step because they're right. I've come into some money. My uncle passed away and left me £10,000. What if I buy £10,000 of equity this month? What does that look like?
Yeah.
What does it do to my term? What does it do to my total costs? What does it do to my monthly payments? How does that look compared to my current metrics? Right, instead of buying £10,000 of equity this month, what if I spread it over the next 3 months and pay £3,500 per month for the next 3 months, broadly speaking? What does that look like? Which one do I like the most? This one, okay, click and it's done. So you can completely self-manage, just like you can self-manage your Uber taxi.
Yeah.
The Uber app, you can completely self-manage your order through our app as well.
That's incredible. And why is it...
And it's only possible because of the debt-free nature.
Yeah, so that was my question. Why is it so important to avoid the debt? Like, what's wrong with debt?
So, in theory, debt can be halal as long as there's no riba attached to it.
Yeah.
So we know the term qard hasan.
Yeah.
It's a goodly loan when there's no interest attached to it. But of course, in a bank mortgage, there is riba attached to it. The bank will not lend you money with a qard hasan. They will want you to pay interest on the loan. And riba, as we know in Islam, is prohibited.
Yeah.
And for a multitude of reasons. Again, riba is designed, the whole banking system is designed around riba.
Riba, yeah.
Riba is designed to make the rich richer and the poor poorer. It is a very, very oppressive monetary system. And we can see how Western economies literally enslave developing countries through debt, right? They spend decades paying off interest and the debt doesn't produce one penny, right? It's a form of enslavement. So this is why riba is so heavily discouraged in Islam. There is nothing else in the Quran that Allah and His Rasul wage war on apart from riba. Not on homosexuality, not on haram food, not on gambling, not even on alcohol. Riba is the one thing that Allah and His Rasul have waged war upon because it is such an oppressive monetary system. And so what we do at PFIDA is we take riba out of the equation by having no debt. Where there is no debt, there can be no riba.
MashaAllah. So it sounds like you have a phenomenal product, which obviously has taken years of development and building and tweaking. So you must have loads of people interested in your product, right?
Yeah.
You did?
Now, alhamdulillah, we have quite a long waiting list. That's the biggest catch with our product, that there is a waiting list. You can't just walk in and get funded.
Why not?
Immediately. Because we have a very, very large demand of people who want to buy homes.
MashaAllah.
And we aren't a huge bank, right, where we've got all the money in the world. So we're limited by how quickly we can go. We can only go as quickly as we can bring the money in. And that brings us to our other product, which is our savings account product.
Yeah.
So our savings account product is, again, our halal alternative to a bank savings account. In a bank savings account, what many people don't realize is you're loaning money to the bank. It's a loan. And that's why any interest on that is haram, because it's riba, right? So you're actually lending money to the bank. Your money is guaranteed. They have to pay it back on demand.
Right.
But the problem is, Islamically, when your capital is guaranteed, you can't accept a return on that capital. Because, it's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, al-HAJJ bil-Zaman, with risk comes reward. You cannot accept reward if you're not willing to take risk. So when your capital is guaranteed, as it is in a loan, any return you get on top of a guaranteed capital amount is riba, and that is not permitted in Islam. So in a bank savings account, your money is being lent to the bank, therefore any return you get is riba on top of that because your money is guaranteed. Right. In a FIDA savings account, rather than it being a bank deposit, it's an investment savings account. Right. Your money is invested into properties to help people buy homes. Now, property is generally considered to be a low-risk asset class. It's bricks and mortar, it's safe as houses, as they say. That doesn't mean there's no risk. The risk is, imagine if you've got £100,000 and you use it to buy a property. We don't tend to think of risk when we buy property. But that doesn't mean there's no risk. There's risk in any type of investment. It's just that some investments are riskier than others. So when you buy a property, the risk is, if that property is blown into the sea by a hurricane, and there's no insurance recoverable, you've lost your £100,000. Now, we don't often hear of properties being destroyed. We don't often hear of insurance companies, but it can happen, right? It's no risk, but it can happen. Now, when you put money into a FIDA savings account, that is what we're doing with your money. We're putting it into property. But instead of your £100,000, if you're very wealthy, going into one property, it's being spread across our entire portfolio of properties. So you're getting what we call diversification benefit. So even if that worst case scenario happened to one of our properties, if one of our properties was blown into the sea and there was no recoverable, yes, there would be a loss in that case. But if that property is worth 1% of our portfolio, the loss would be 1%. And that nets off against the return you get off our savings accounts, which at present, at the time of recording, are up to 4.7%. Very, very high returns. And I'll get into that in just a minute as well. So it's generally considered to be a low-risk account. It's not a bank deposit. That's the thing people need to understand. With a bank deposit, your money is guaranteed, but that is the problem with a bank deposit. That is what makes your returns in a bank. Here, it's a low-risk property investment. You're getting a return. How is the return structured? It's a profit share on the rental income. So all of our customers whose homes we have funded, they are paying us rent on the share that they don't own. And we are basically sharing our rental income, half the profit that we generate, with our savings account holders. It's a simple profit share agreement. It's as halal as you can possibly get.
MashaAllah. How many homes have been funded so far?
Inshallah, we're on the cusp of funding our 100th home.
100th, MashaAllah, Mubarak.
We'll do a nice big celebration.
Big milestone. Big milestone.
And again, I could never have imagined getting to that point. And may Allah allow me and the team to do even more, inshallah.
And like you said, you're still at -3 level.
Exactly.
There's many more milestones to come.
Inshallah. You know, my mission is to make FIDA a household name. You know, so that when anybody from any background in the future, 5 to 10 years time, is thinking of buying a home, they don't just think of Barclay and Halifax, but they also think of FIDA. That is my mission, inshallah.
I think given the product you've created, I think it's inevitable.
Inshallah.
It's inevitable.
And also on the savings side, I should add. You know, when people are thinking, well, where do I put my money? And we need to get into an investment mindset. But when people are thinking, well, where do I put my savings, my idle money? Rather than just thinking of a bank account, I want people to think of FIDA, because our savings accounts are designed to look and feel and behave just like a bank savings account. I stress they're not a bank account. But they're designed to look and feel and behave like a bank account. We even pay returns on a monthly basis. And you know, you can log into your dashboard, you can see your balance, you can see how much you've earned. And they're designed to operate like that because the whole idea is we are positioning ourselves as an ethical alternative to
Absolutely. Now I'm in the process of opening my savings account with you guys, and something I didn't expect is that you make a saving on the zakat as well. Because obviously the money is now not idle, it's been invested somewhere.
Correct.
So that makes the return even better.
Yeah, and so for many people, the return is completely tax-free as well, which I'll explain in just a minute. But just going back to the zakat point, it's a really good point. You know, Allah in His infinite wisdom has decided what asset classes are zakatable and what are not. Now, Allah in His infinite wisdom has decided that, you know, when you put your money in a property, you don't pay zakat on the value of that property. The reason being that you're activating your wealth, that property is creating a home for somebody, is creating genuine good with your wealth. Whereas when you hoard wealth, when you leave it sitting idle in a bank account, nobody benefits from that. You don't benefit from it, and nobody else benefits from it, although arguably just the bank does, right? The bank gets richer from it. So when you leave money idle, when you're hoarding wealth, you know, as a penance for not doing something useful with your wealth, Allah says, well, if you're not going to do something useful, at least let the poor benefit from it. Pay to and zakat. Whereas if you're doing something useful with your wealth, if you're circulating your wealth and activating it, everybody benefits, from the poor down up to the rich, right? So that is the divine wisdom behind zakat. Now, when you put money in a savings account with us, you're giving us the money to put into property. All we're doing with that money is putting it directly into property. So as soon as we put that money into properties, there's no zakat to pay on it, because property is not a zakatable asset. Now, what we're not trying to do here is discourage zakat payment. Zakat is a pillar of Islam. It's incredibly important, but we are highlighting the rule that Allah has created in His divine wisdom, that once your money is in a property, you don't pay zakat on it. Now, imagine you're saving up for something. Let's say you're saving up for a home deposit, and you're leaving your money, you're just saving in a bank account. When you leave money in a bank account, you pay zakat, as we've just discussed. So after 4 years of saving your deposit, you've given away 10% of your deposit in zakat. That is not the most efficient way of saving up. And the reason you're paying that in zakat is because you're not doing anything useful with your wealth. You're not saving in a good, righteous way. Whereas when you put the money into our savings account, you don't pay zakat on it. And so that automatically uplifts your balance by 2.5%. Now, also the returns on our savings accounts, the way they're structured, is in the form of dividends, because the savings accounts are structured as shares investment. So what that means is dividends in the UK have their own tax-free allowance. At the time of recording, that's £1,000. Now that means somebody who doesn't have other dividend income, they could save up to £20,000 with us completely tax-free. Now I want to put this into context, because people look at the headline figure and we need to get in the habit of actually looking at the net return. How much money are we actually getting to keep? So on our savings accounts, if you're earning 4.7%, which is on our highest yielding savings account, you're not paying any zakat on that. And if you don't have any other dividend income, you're not paying any tax on that potentially. What does that translate into on a grossed up basis? In other words, what would you have to earn on another bank account to be left with 4.7%? Well, if you're a 40% taxpayer and a zakat payer, and you don't have any other dividend income, you would have to be earning 12% gross elsewhere to be left with 4.7% net. Let's do some maths together, right? Let's take 10%. Let's say you're earning 10% of the bank account. You're a 40% taxpayer, so you knock off 40% of your 10% return. That leaves you with 6%, right? You now have to pay zakat 2.5% on the full amount in your bank account, not just to return the full amount, right? So you knock off another 2.5%. 6 minus 2.5 is 3.5%. So if you're getting 10% on a bank account, you're only actually being left with 3.5%. Whereas the 4.7% on our savings account, and again I stress, it's an investment account, so it's not a guaranteed return, but hello, we've never not met that. That 4.7% net is more than what you'd be left with if you were earning 10% on a bank account elsewhere. It's actually about what you'd be left with if you were earning 12% on a bank account elsewhere. And you can do the, if you're not a 40% taxpayer, 20% taxpayer, you can do the maths. And actually, I think the returns we're giving on a net basis are exceptional, particularly for this risk profile, right? It's as we've discussed, a low risk profile. It's just going into bricks and mortar. You know exactly what your money's doing. But I don't think there's anything else that's matching that at the moment.
To be honest, the mere fact that your money is not fueling more riba is enough.
For me,
I don't even want the 4%. I just want to make sure I'm not fueling some mortgages left, right, and centre.
Exactly. For me, actually, that far outweighs the financial return. Of course, we appreciate if people are putting money with us, we need to give them, we need to reward them commensurately. We have to do that. So we want to make sure that we're not only fueling good, but we're actually increasing wealth for Muslims. That is part of our mission. So if we can give an exceptional return to Muslims on a healthy basis, I want to do that. And actually, the other question we get asked is, well, what about your home buying product? I mean, that's really expensive. And you'll be surprised. Currently, we offer one of the most competitively priced home buying products on the entire market. And that is because of this savings account mechanism that we've got. We're able to raise money in a similar way to banks, right? Through our savings accounts. So other shared ownership type providers on the market, they raise money through property funds, and property funds demand property type, high returns, double-digit returns. Or they raise money through debt, and because they're unrated, the debt costs a lot. As a result, they have to charge their home buyers a lot. Whereas we have sort of created that secret recipe where we can raise money in a similar way to banks at a similar cost to banks, and as a result, we can offer a very competitive price on the home buying product as well. So we offer exceptional returns on the savings account and exceptional funding rate for buying a home. Now, again, going back to the savings account, for me, yes, the financial return is exceptional, but just like what you said, for me, the single greatest reason to consider our savings accounts is actually the ZAKAT element. If you imagine, we've discussed that dealing in riba is like waging war with a man his Rasul, right? There's a hadith that it's been likened to fornicating with your own mother. This is the seriousness of this. Now imagine the reward of helping a family to avoid riba. Imagine the reward of helping hundreds of families to avoid riba. If we could see that reward in front of us, we would give everything we had to achieve that, right? For me, the single greatest reason to consider this savings account is because you are alleviating riba. And as I mentioned earlier, as an ummah, as a Muslim community, we have a collective responsibility to, if we have the opportunity to help eliminate riba, we have a responsibility. What are we going to say? Again, rewind to what I said before. Picture ourselves in that conversation with Allah. When, we know if we hate something and it's despised in Islam, we have a responsibility in Islam to change it with our hands.
Yeah.
If we can't change it with our hands, we should speak out against it with our tongues. If we can't speak out against it, we should make dua, and that is the lowest form of iman. But we have an opportunity right now to eliminate riba, not only if we all come together as a community. We have an opportunity to create a genuine solution for all Muslims, not just in the UK. This can be a global product. We have an opportunity to create a way for all Muslims to avoid riba. What are we as Muslims going to do with that opportunity? When Allah asks us, you had this opportunity in front of you, what did you do with it? Are we going to say, I left it to the FIDA team to fix it by themselves? Are we going to say, actually, there was another investment that was higher yielding, and so I went for that instead? Are we going to say, actually, I wasn't quite sure, and so I just didn't act? Is that the response we want to give to Allah on that day? Or do we want to be able to say, Ya Allah, I tried?
So I guess anybody watching this right now who has a bank account, who has money in the bank account, now there's no excuse.
So look,
Honestly speaking, if you now know that you're fueling riba and you know that there's an alternative,
and you're fueling the rich-poor divide, and you're fueling economic volatility, and you don't even know what your bank's doing with
the money.
We should not accept that as Muslims.
Instead, let's help people buy homes. And many of us are in that stage where we want to buy a home and we are saving up. So we finally have a fully ethical halal solution where there's no gray area, like some of the Islamic banks. There's a difference of opinion and there's a lot of debate. This is black and white. No gray area whatsoever.
I meet a scholar who has any issues with our products. Alhamdulillah. And, you'll see on our YouTube, we've got a video testimonial from Sheikh Haitham al-Haddad.
Yeah.
He sets the bar high.
Yeah.
He's very outspoken against existing Islamic products. He's one of the scholars who doesn't agree with them. And alhamdulillah, we've spoken to many different scholars, and you'll see a few other sort of scholars slowly appearing on our YouTube channel. More and more of them are coming across us and saying, I want to give you a testimonial, I want to put my full support behind. Alhamdulillah, we just actually, last week we were in Turkey, and we did an Islamic finance roundtable with a whole bunch of scholars. And that's going to come out soon as well, inshallah, so look out for that. But alhamdulillah, I believe, Islamic banks, the product they created, I call it Islamic finance version 1.0. But as with any product, there's always room for growth and improvement. And I believe we have now brought out Islamic finance version 3.0, right? Where it is tayyib. It's not just Sharia compliant, the boxes, but it's actually tayyib. It's actually pure. It's completely aligned with the spirit of the Sharia, as opposed to just the letter of Sharia.
Which is to benefit as many people as you can.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. The best of you are those who benefit others. And in this conversation with you, I can now see that benefit is happening at multiple levels. It's not just helping somebody buy a home. It's the direct impact on inflation, house prices, not fueling the bigger divide, and allowing somebody to have a really good return on their savings, and subhanAllah.
Exactly. And as Muslims, we need to be much better at seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
I think, and it's not just our community, I'm being very unfair by saying just Muslims, but as a community, that bigger picture is so important.
Yeah.
We need to not just think about how does this impact me, we need to think about how does this impact my neighbor, how does this impact our economy, which we live in? How can we create good overall for others as well as for ourselves? So the savings account mechanism we've created is a virtuous cycle where everybody benefits. Your money is helping others to buy homes. You're also getting a halal return. You're also getting, inshallah, a return in the akhirah for helping to avoid riba. Everybody is benefiting in a virtuous cycle, and that is what we need to be promoting as Muslims, inshallah. You also asked, for people who have money sitting idle in a bank account, there's no excuse. And I want to just sort of touch upon that, because, as an actuary, as a risk modeler myself, it would be wrong of me to say, all right, take all your money from your bank account and put all of the money into FIDA, right? Because actually we need to just get better at having an investment mindset. Leaving money in one place isn't the best place. best way to use your money either. We need to spread our eggs. And actually, the top 1%, we need to invest like the top 1%.
Yeah.
The top 1% have an allocation of their wealth for high risk ventures. And there are risky ventures available. There's crypto platforms like that. And there's, venture platforms. And I'm only talking about Islamic providers at the moment. Then venture platforms like Curate Capital now, right? And HAJJ, right? So we should have an allocation of our wealth for high risk opportunities. We should have an allocation for medium risk opportunities. My rule of thumb is, in my portfolio, I want to have no more than 5% high risk, right? I might want to have something like 50 to 55% medium risk, right?
Yeah.
Which, there are platforms like Yielders where you can invest into property. And there are platforms like IFG, again, Curate Capital, who have some medium risk opportunities as well. And then there should be an allocation for very low risk, which is where FIDA comes in, right? It's basically a savings account for money that you're not investing in higher risk, higher rewarding opportunities. And there should be an allocation for low risk. And my rule of thumb, I like to keep about 40 to 45% of my wealth in low risk. So that I know I've got that nest egg, even if the higher risk stuff doesn't pay off. If I'm making losses there, then at least I know I've got that nest egg to fall back on. And that's where opportunities like FIDA, our savings accounts are 100% property backed. That's where our opportunity comes in. So it would be wrong of me to say put all of your money into FIDA. But what the very least, the very worst thing we can be doing is leaving all of our money in a bank account. That is for certain.
Inshallah. So you mentioned you're very close to your 100th home. What would it take for us to be able to add a few zeros to that number?
Yeah, so we need to just scale up the rate at which we're drawing money into our savings account. So right now we're mainly helping individuals save, because we see that as a service. People need a halal place to park their capital. We've cracked that nut now, haven't we? We've got more and more people placing their savings with us. Now we're starting to speak to charities and smaller organizations. And inshallah, we also want to start speaking to institutions as well. And that's the point at which we can start adding multiple zeros onto that book. But to put it into perspective, let's take Al Rayan Bank, the largest Islamic bank, now pulled out of the home finance market. But over 12 years, Al Rayan Bank served about 6,500 home buyers, right? So that is a £1.5 billion portfolio. That puts into perspective the numbers. Now, I think, inshallah, with the right capital, we can go much further than that. Well, I think we can do it much quicker than that, inshallah, because we know every day we get people coming to us and saying, this is the home buying product I've been waiting all my life.
Absolutely.
I'm 45 years old. I've been renting all my life. I don't believe in any other product. And I had come to the conclusion that I would have to save up and buy my home for cash. But this is the first product I'm comfortable with. We know the demand is there. And I think there's actually much more demand, inshallah, for our product than the Islamic banking products, because we don't split opinion. Right? Everybody can get clear cut with our product.
It's clear cut.
So it's just a question of how quickly we bring on the mass market individual savings. Up until now, all of our traction has been through word of mouth, organic growth. Right? Alhamdulillah, I think we've achieved a hell of a lot through organic growth. I'm very proud of that. But I don't want our product only to be available to Muslims. The fact that it is halal and ethical means that it should be for humanity. It should be for everybody. And if I'm only limiting our savings accounts to Muslim money, there's a whole big chunk of money, a much larger chunk of money that I'm excluding. Our savings accounts should appeal to anybody from any background. So now, inshallah, we want to start marketing in the mainstream, not just through word of mouth, only in Muslim communities. And also then, inshallah, start bringing on that institutional capital as well.
I've seen some billboards. Was it a billboard or was it a bus? FIDA, massive marketing poster somewhere.
You may have seen a billboard. We've been on buses, but you may have seen a billboard.
Coming soon, inshallah. But you're completely right, because the product is so appealing from so many different angles. You should go mainstream.
Inshallah.
And the product is far better and superior than the average product in the market, the average mortgage,
Inshallah.
which is just making the crisis worse and worse and worse. You know, my generation is fed up with how unattainable the prices have become.
Exactly. Yeah.
So are we going to try and do something to change that, or are we going to continue the system that put us in this mess in the first place?
Exactly. And you know, what you said about home buying product being better than a conventional mortgage, you know, the strap line that I like to tell people, and funny enough, when I explain our product to non-Muslims, I literally see jaws dropping, right? And
Not surprised.
saying, why has no one ever done this for us before? But imagine, you know, yes, it's a halal, tayyib, sharia compliant product, but because of that, it should appeal to everybody. If you can buy a home, pay similar to what you pay elsewhere, but never be in debt, have complete flexibility over your payments, and never have to worry about the roof over your head, you don't have to be Muslim to find that appealing. That appeals to humanity. And that is what FIDA was for the people, not just for the Muslims, for the people as a whole. That is what FIDA stands for. Similarly, our savings accounts, right?
Same thing. Yeah.
If you can save money with us, know exactly what we're doing with your money. Know that your money is not fueling inflation. Know that your money is not being used to price you out of your own home. Know that your money is not widening the rich-poor divide. Know that your money is not creating volatility in the economy, but creating stability in the economy. Why should that only appeal to Muslims? It should appeal to anybody and everybody.
Everybody. And that's why I think it will be inevitable that FIDA will become a household name.
I mean,
it's just, the product is that good. So yeah, I think, and I'm genuinely saying that as someone with an economics background as well as a business background, I see it, inshallah. And add barakah on top of it, sincerity and hard work. It's going to be inevitable, inshallah.
I often say to my team, we've got half the Muslim Ummah making dua for us. If we fail, we've done something horribly wrong.
People have been waiting for this product. I know I have been waiting a long time. I've basically resigned myself to, I'll buy it when I have the cash for it. That's basically it. But now, that milestone can happen a lot sooner for me, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So as you know, this series is faith-driven. So I'm looking for Muslim entrepreneurs who are faith-driven. And I think in your case, it's very, very clear that everything you've done is because of your faith.
Yeah.
So I think the questions I will ask you are going to be slightly different because the whole thing has been driven by faith. So I usually would like to know how faith has helped you in your journey. So would you be able to maybe give me an example of how, you know, having Iman and being a Muslim has helped you in this journey of business in general? You know, it's a very uncertain, bumpy ride. Is there an anecdote that you can give us to really?
So I gave one anecdote earlier.
Yeah.
And I'll give another one. So the one I gave earlier was, you know, just having the conviction to do it with that mantra. You take a step to the light, it comes right towards you.
That's powerful. That
helped me tremendously, just reminding myself of that. But I'll give another example where early in the journey, when we were still building, right, and we had hit a particularly tough blocker in the journey. And I literally thought, that's it, this is the end, it can't be done. And I remember going home, tears in my eyes.
Wow.
Because I'd worked so hard, everything into it. I remember laying my head on my mum's lap, crying in her lap and saying, Mum, it's over, it's finished. And I remember my mum stroking my head. God bless her. Sorry, this story really does get me every time, because I remember how emotional I was that day. I remember my mum stroking my head and saying, Raza, you're doing this for Allah, then He'll fix this for you. And I remember having the audacity to say to my mum, if I'm being wrong, you don't know. This isn't just about dua. And my mum saying, no, you're doing this for Allah, He will find a way for you. And I kid you not, brother Tanim, the very next day, literally in front of my eyes, I could see Allah's hand removing that boulder from our path like it never existed. This is the power of mum's du'as. And I can never, ever, none of us can ever be grateful enough to our mothers. But that day, I am so ashamed of saying to my mum, "You're wrong," and not having the faith to believe in the power of mum's du'as. And subhanAllah, I'm so glad she proved me wrong that day, because I literally thought it was the end of the journey. I thought this was an insurmountable obstacle, and the next day, poof, like it never existed. I could almost see Allah's hand in front of my eyes, just removing it, honestly. And that is the power, the benefit that we Muslims have. That we have the benefit of du'as, and in particular for those of us whose mothers are still here, we have the benefit of mother's du'as, which we should never ever underestimate. And I'm so ashamed on that day that I did.
And you know, I had the privilege of actually meeting your mother, and she's an incredible woman with an incredible history herself. Alhamdulillah. And I guess this is part of the reason why I do this series, is because I believe as Muslims, we should be unstoppable entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
You know, we have so many things behind us. Even that one mantra that you mentioned earlier, that is powerful. That can keep a person going, this no matter what happens, right?
Yeah.
And knowing that Allah nothing's impossible for Allah, right? So
there's a third one.
Go on, let's hear it.
Istikhara.
Yes.
We should never underestimate the power of istikhara. Again, and this is a tool we Muslims have in our kit that others do not. Power of istikhara, and my team and I often talk about this. I can tell you countless times where I've been on the verge of making a business decision, and I've said, right, I'm going to make istikhara. Gone and done istikhara last thing before sleeping. And I know you don't have to, but I like to do istikhara last thing before sleeping, and if I have a dream, then it really helps me decide. And a number of times I've done istikhara and had a very strong, clear message that this isn't the right decision. And even though I had full conviction this is what we should be doing, and so I've held off doing it, not knowing why. And then afterwards, it's come about and I've realised, I dodged a bullet here. Yeah? The power of istikhara we cannot underestimate.
I know how many entrepreneurs have this divine assistance.
Exactly.
Come on. We're really privileged. So this is part of sort of my message, which is Muslims should be in business. And if we are, we should be the best.
Exactly.
Because we have so much behind us.
We have divine support. You can't ask for any more.
And again, alhamdulillah. And you know, it really delights my heart to see someone like yourself going for it. You know, you're going after HSBC. You're gonna, inshallah, you're going after them because, you know, you have this arsenal of wonderful, unique things that we have that the average entrepreneur doesn't.
Yeah,
inshallah.
No, alhamdulillah. Very lucky. And I've got a wonderful team as well. My senior team are all on that same page, the same vision, same mission. That's really important.
And the other side is there's a lot of Muslim talent out there that wants to work for a real mission. They want to work for a company, for the people, for a good vision, and they're willing to dedicate their talent. And this goes back to the point you made earlier. What will I have to show for? Well, not everybody has to come up with the next PFIDA.
That's right.
Support it.
Exactly.
Come, give the talent, the skills that you've been blessed with. And subhanAllah, I know we sometimes think that, you know, I've worked really hard, I got a degree, and I got a good job. So, you know, I worked for it, I deserved it. But really and truly, no, everything is given to you.
Absolutely.
Who decided that you were going to be born in that place at that time, in that family? You know, who gave you the brain that you used to memorize those things for the exam? So everything is from Allah. None of it is ours.
I mean, imagine you, the same person, being born in Gaza.
There you go.
You would never even be thinking about university. You'd never even be thinking about, because you just don't have that opportunity. And actually, that reminds me, just a quick plug for a sort of campaign we're doing at the moment.
Yeah.
We haven't officially announced this.
MashaAllah.
I'm announcing this for the first time through you. Right now, for for a limited period, anyone who opens a savings account with us, we are donating £200 to Raza.
I'll show you.
Regardless of them. Someone can open a savings account from £100. We will, from our own pockets, donate £200 to Raza.
Alhamdulillah. No, that's really, really wonderful. What would be your advice to someone, a Muslim professional, who finds themselves in that situation where they're realizing, I need to do more with my life, with these blessings that I have? What would your advice to them be? Would it be to jump into entrepreneurship? Would it be to, someone who really feels that urge to do something?
Yeah, so I think it depends on where you are in your career.
Gotcha.
So I've had people come up to me, young new grads, saying, I want to start an Islamic venture because I want to do something. And my response to them has been just like my mentor told me, go and get the skill sets first, right? Yeah. Go into industry, learn from the best, the people who've been doing this for decades, develop those skill sets so that later in your life, you've got your whole life ahead of you, inshallah. Get the skill sets first so that then you can actually do it properly, rather than just jumping into it. And there are some things you can, like mashallah, what you're doing. You don't need to go and learn about capital modeling. I did to set up a property business.
I know.
But make sure you've got the right skill sets. Everyone wants to do something good. Make sure you've got the right skill sets first. So if you're early in your career, depending on what you want to do, don't rush. If you're confident you've got the skill sets already, fine, that's great. But if there's an element where you can go and learn those skill sets first, it's better to take things slowly and do things right rather than rush and get things wrong. Now, if you're later in your career and you've already got, that fully rounded skill set, again, as we've discussed, you don't have to go and set up a new business. And if you've got an idea and you're solving a problem, by all means, I 100% encourage that. But at the same time, right now we've got many Islamic founded businesses. And one thing we're good at in the UK is, the Islamic founded businesses, we all know each other quite well and we're all on pretty good terms with each other. And we're all trying to build towards the same goal. We're all trying to build the Islamic economy, and what we're doing complements each other. So you can either go and set up, find a problem that hasn't been solved yet and solve that problem, or you can go and support the businesses that are already problem solving, because we need support as well, really. We can only grow, as I mentioned earlier, as an ummah, as a community, we have a responsibility to support these sorts of entities. And that might be financially, that might be with our skills, that might be with our verbal support, it might just be with dua. And many people who reach out to me, I respond to them saying, I humbly request, if you do nothing else, I humbly request you make dua. Because that is the most powerful thing you ask. So, I think you first need to decide whether entrepreneurship is right for you. It's not right for everybody. And it might be right for you and you might not realize it. I didn't think it was right for me, but I ended up sort of falling into it. You need to understand first whether you want to go and solve a problem and become an entrepreneur, or whether you want to go and support a business that's already solving a problem. You need to make sure you've got the right skill set for this to do that.
What about for those who are just fed up of employment and want a bit more flexibility, freedom, independence? Some people still to this day struggle bringing their full self to work, finding somewhere to pray on time.
And then quite often that's because you're not fulfilled in what you're doing, right? And it might just be that you need to go on HAJJ. I mean that seriously. The reason HAJJ is so life-changing, yes, it's a very spiritual journey, you're very close to Allah, but it gives you a lot of time to reflect. When you're in your day-to-day grind, you don't get a chance to step back and just reflect. Whereas actually when you're on HAJJ, it's just you and your Rabb. You leave the world behind you. And it gives you a chance to reflect and really think about life and what are your priorities. And for people who are in that situation, struggling, first of all, the prophetic advice is to give sadaqah. If you want an increase in rizq, give more in sadaqah. Right? But also, if you're trying to find your calling in life, take some time to reflect. Go on HAJJ, go on Umrah, or even just go on a getaway and just reflect for a while and think about what is it that you really enjoy? What skill set do you have? Where can you make a difference? And it might be that you decide, actually, I really enjoy going out, traveling and helping people in need, and maybe charities you're calling in life.
Yeah.
Or actually, I have an economics and risk management background, and maybe you could set up a fintech and solve a different kind of problem. Or actually, I'm a rock solid administrator, and that is what I do. And maybe you can go and work for an existing entity and become a rock solid administrator. But you need to take some time to reflect and think about what you enjoy, what are you good at, what can you bring to a business, to a venture, and how can you actually leave your mark?
Inshallah. What is the best thing about being an entrepreneur?
Oh, subhanAllah.
And I'm also going to ask you what's the worst.
Oh, I've got it down as Indian. The best thing is just a sense of fulfillment. Knowing that I'm not just, and I was very happy as an actuary, but really my work as an actuary in the City of London was just to make someone else richer.
Yeah.
I was working so that rich wiggers in the city can get more rich. That's the crux of it. Whereas as an entrepreneur, working for a mission-led entity, I know that every day the work that I do is serving people, creating good, creating benefit, and actually it's something which I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I love it so much. I'm so deeply passionate about it. You can't ask for anything more in the work that you do.
And that because it's so valuable, you're willing to make sacrifices elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the worst thing about an entrepreneur, that, people often think when you're the boss, you can come and go as you please, and you can, Mashallah, you've done an amazing job. So your work-life balance that you've created, I admire so much.
After a long time of graft.
But I admire it so much. But one thing I find is, actually, the way I structure my work, rather than being the one who comes and goes as I please, I'm the one setting the example for all my staff.
Of course.
So I like to try and be in early, and I like to leave late and make sure that if my staff are working late, they're not alone and I'm here with them. And so I find that actually it can become quite draining on my time, and that can sometimes end up eating into family time. And that's the bit which is really hard to balance as an entrepreneur. So I mentioned I was in Turkey last week on a family retreat, and I took my family along as well, and it was half time. I'm like, why don't you guys come as well? But I ended up half my time there working.
Of course.
Right? So half my time I was sending my family saying, well, you guys go and have fun. I'm going to be at the PFIDA store, or I'm going to be doing a seminar or whatever. Half my time I got to spend with them. So again, even on holiday, I ended up working half my time, which that's the hardest bit about being an entrepreneur. Making sure you're doing right by your family.
Yeah.
And in the early days, I was working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it became really unfair on my family. And I realized that, and I decided, right, I have to protect my family time.
Yeah.
So I decided, right, at least weekends I'm going to keep sacred.
Yeah.
Occasionally I do end up having to still work on weekends, but I make sure I wake up early.
Yeah.
I get it done early so I can still spend the weekend with my family rather than eating into their time. So I make sure I at least preserve weekends. And I try and not finish too late on weekdays, although more often than not I do end up working late. But at least weekends, and when they're on holidays, I try and make sure I take time off and stuff like that.
I think it's important to remember that the reason why you are working so hard is because you're in a building phase right now. You're building something, and this something is huge, it's colossal.
Potentially.
You understand? So it will require a lot of work. Like, if you were just sort of setting up a few coffee shops, maybe you wouldn't need to be working, as hard, but because there's
hard work. It's hard work running a coffee shop.
I know. All right, bad example. It's because the vision is so big. This is it. Whereas some entrepreneurs will pick the business based on the lifestyle. So I've always done lifestyle businesses, and I'm only now sort of thinking, hold on, could I be doing something bigger? And sort of transitioning in something, and trust me, my workload has increased, right? So I think it's about the size of the vision will dictate how hard we have to graft. And, alhamdulillah, the beauty is that there are people who are grafting, but they don't get anything in the akhirah. The grafting probably harder,
Yeah.
but they're not getting anything in the akhirah. Whereas, alhamdulillah, if you're lucky enough to have found the calling and have a mission that is ummah driven, God driven, faith driven, alhamdulillah,
It doesn't even matter if you fail.
absolutely. And then the beauty is you'll be rewarded based on your intention. So achieving it is beyond the point.
Yeah.
It's all about the intention and the effort.
Yeah. Actually, you're right. Being successful in it is actually just the bonus.
It's the bonus.
Yeah.
It's the bonus. And with a vision as big as yours, maybe this will outlive you. This may outlive you.
Yeah.
Meaning that you will take over the big guys, but you may not be around. But your legacy is continuing for decades and inshallah centuries when we eventually eradicate riba.
Inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. It's been an absolute pleasure. I could speak to you for hours.
Likewise.
We probably will have to do another episode at some point. And yeah, alhamdulillah, may Allah bless you and your team, your vision. I'm definitely, a massive supporter. I hope that everybody watching this today now understand the vision, are on board with it, and are going to take steps to help by being part of it, by supporting the savings account, by spreading the word, and by being more conscious about the wider economic system and the banking system, inshallah. Barakallah fikum. May Allah bless you and preserve you and increase you, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Wonderful episode, man. I learned a lot. That was quality. Alhamdulillah.